Hi, this is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. Well, I've been telling you since day one that really no one, I repeat, no one is looking after your health. Frankly, the only person that can do anything about your health is you. You're it. You're all alone in this. Thankfully, you can be alone in this together with other people. But for the most part, you're just on your own. You cannot trust any of the major institutions out there. There's a study that came out from the NIH this week where they looked at private equity groups, which are now the major employer, or the people that have bought out most of the hospitals and most of the care facilities in this country, in the United States of America. They're owned by private equity groups. Got bad news for you. Look at two metrics to determine, do they care about you? Frankly, no. They can't keep patients in their beds. The fall rate is going through the roof. Infections are getting worse by the day. They're skyrocketing. Basic health care, basic things that any health institution should be able to do, they fail at miserably, but they're still investing in them because they make them money. Look at the head of your hospital. It is not an MD. It used to be that doctors ran hospitals. They were hospital administrators, and they took that job very seriously because not only did they have a fiduciary responsibility to the people that owned the hospital, but they also had a medical board that they paid attention to, plus their own personal prestige as a doctor, as a physician, and they wanted to provide better care. But frankly, that isn't the people that are in charge of the hospitals now. MBAs are in control of the hospital, and they only care about the bottom line. They just want to soak you for as much cash as possible. They want to get as much money out of the government as possible, and they want to get as much money from the insurance companies as possible. Your care is not their problem. They have a responsibility to their people that are invested, not to you. Keep that in mind. I mean, big insurance is not looking after you. If you want to go bankrupt in the United States of America, have really good insurance and have a major health problem. That is the leading cause of bankruptcy in this country because big insurance ain't looking after you. The hospitals, their billing system is absolutely replete with problems. Insurance companies are notorious, and they've been sued time and time again, but they still keep doing it because, look, unless they deny a certain number of claims, they're going to become unprofitable. They have to deny a certain number in order to stay profitable. And the way they do this, they just do it arbitrarily. They'll just deny stuff. And they know that a large hunk of you guys do not have the guts to challenge them because you don't know that system. And as a result, they win, you lose. The system is not looking after you. Big Pharma, for goodness sakes, despite the fact that they're having record profits, just increased the price of over 274 drugs this week. The Biden administration is pleading with them, don't do it, and they're doing it anyway. They don't care about you. They have been caught time and time again fudging data. Think about Vioxx. How many people they knew were going to die of heart attacks, but that was okay because the drug was still profitable. As long as the number didn't go over this point, we're fine. They produced a drug that they knew were going to kill people. There was an very interesting speech given by the former head of the Cleveland Clinic. It was a tearful speech where the doctor was leaving the place because basically the vaccine issue got him. He realized for the first time in his life that he'd been doing everything by rote. He was following a religious dogma taught to him since medical school that vaccines are safe, effective, and they always work. And they're the best thing since sliced bread, and there's never any downside. And as a result, he never listened to patients that did have adverse events. He was never taught that there was a reporting system and that billions of dollars has been paid out to people that managed to navigate that system that were injured by vaccines. He just didn't bother to because they never taught it to him. And when he started to really realize that, wait a second, the emperor doesn't have any clothes. There's problems with some of these drugs. The safe vaccines have problems. Every drug that you're taking is basically a poison. The question is, what's the dose, and is it worth the risk of that poison in order to take care of a particular disease? If you're concerned about cholesterol, and cholesterol isn't a disease, it's a physiological fact of life. Your liver is going to produce cholesterol whether you eat saturated fat or not. But there's $1 trillion in the statin industry. They buy a lot of advertising, a lot of support. They've been putting out the word that, you want to cut your heart attack risk, you take a statin. Even though the evidence shows that maybe if you take a statin religiously for 20 years, you may add 1 day to your life statistically, that the number needed to treat is ridiculously high, up in the hundreds, before you have any positive effect on anyone. And frankly, there's no mechanism that shows that cholesterol is actually a problem. Because there's a UCLA study where they looked at everybody that had a heart attack all over the world, and they found out that the cholesterol was not an effect. Type 2 diabetes is a problem. That causes heart attacks. That increases your risk dramatically. That's the number one risk factor. But cholesterol doesn't. But the only thing your doctor has talked to you about probably in any of your visits, whenever you look at your blood work, is your cholesterol level. And they want to push a statin on you because they can fix that. And they can make you go away and they feel like they've done something. Because frankly, they're not all that vested in your health either. Look, anybody that's had a doctor that used to have their own practice, that it was hence been bought out by another corporation, and they've seen the relationship with their doctor change because they are no longer their doctor, they are now an employee of a big health firm, which means that they've got to follow an algorithm. They've only got a few minutes. They've got to go over drugs. They've got to prescribe so many drugs. They've got to force so many of their patients into being vaccinated in order to get their bonuses. That's the medical reality. Your doctor isn't your doctor anymore. The biggest employer of doctors right now are CVS Pharmacy and I'm not kidding, and United Healthcare Insurance Company. A health insurance company is the biggest employer, single biggest employer of doctors in the country. They're not looking after you. The system is horribly rigged against you. And the government, frankly, they're not of any use either. Most of the major regulators are on a revolving door between, 1 year they're serving on a regulatory agency, the next year they're making 7 figures in big pharma, or they're working for big ag. And as a result, your health goes by the wayside, and every bit of advice they give really should be suspect. Think about this. Lyndon Johnson, back in the 1960s, got very concerned when the price of eggs was skyrocketing. Why were they skyrocketing? Because there was inflation, but it was kind of hidden because it was an expanding economy, except for the price of eggs. So he got his Surgeon General to put out a fake report that they just made up that eggs were bad for your health. The result? Demand for eggs dropped, so did the price of eggs because demand dropped. They were manipulating people, putting out false information, flat out false information, strictly for political reasons. This has been going on for a long time, but this is where it's going to get worse, and it's going to be happening possibly this May. The WHO, the World Health Organization, is pushing what they call the pandemic treaty, and the reason why this is particularly dangerous is because it gives them enormous amounts of power to control disinformation. They're going to be able to control what Google is going to allow in searches, what you're going to be able to see on YouTube, what you're going to be able to read in the library, what you're going to see on Amazon. Basically, it's all going to be controlled by a bunch of bureaucrats, not elected officials, completely unaccountable. Basically, it's Davos, what's going on over in Switzerland right now, on steroids, where the people like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is one of the largest funders of the WHO, are going to control the worldwide agenda when it comes to health information. They're not looking after you. That, frankly, look at the last 3 years at the health advice that came out of the WHO during their biggest challenge, the pandemic. What advice did they give you that was really worthwhile? I mean, did they tell you, hey, look, we've got a major virus, brand new novel virus floating around the planet. Now is the best time in your entire life to get healthy. Start eating real food, get rid of the processed junk, cut down on the drinking, start getting some exercise, walking, getting some sunshine, getting some vitamin D, make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Did they tell you that? Did any public health official tell you how to get healthy to best withstand the virus? Did they protect the most vulnerable? Did they screw up the entire world economy? Did they ruin the lives of a lot of kids? Did they destroy educational opportunities for people? Yes, they did. Why? Because they're incompetent, basically. They're not looking after you. Everything that they did was basically set up for Big Pharma. It had nothing to do with you. So if you can't see that, this isn't your channel. But if you're looking at that going, yeah, this dude's got kind of a point, that's been kind of a problem, then you got to realize that, look, if this thing passes in May, and there's a very good likelihood that it's going to happen, because our government officials are not paying attention. They are asleep at the switch. There's a couple of countries that maybe will stand up to it. Hungary and Italy, maybe. But don't count on France. I mean, Macron's government can't wait to sign it. The UK, their prime minister right now is a head of a private equity group that's been investing heavily in Big Pharma. Joe Biden will definitely sign it. If the Trudeau government doesn't collapse, that guy is salivating to sign that one. I mean, there isn't anybody looking after you, and there's not much of a chance of stopping this thing, even though it needs to be stopped. Hopefully it will. But if it doesn't get stopped, they're going to be able to control the flow of information. Expect to see carnivore channels being shut off because, frankly, one of the things that they have under that pandemic treaty is not just pandemics, but they can consider climate change as a reason to get involved and to utilize their powers and to control what information is going to be allowed out there. And if they decide that somehow cows are destroying the environment, there it goes. It's gone. And there's nothing that any government can do to stop them. Once a treaty like that has been signed, it's off to the races. And they will exercise their authority with a lot of these major corporations. So the stuff that you've been, kind of gotten used to, I'm suggesting to you between now and May, you take it very seriously and get yourself as healthy and out of the system as you possibly can. I mean, I think this is a deadline that, between now and May, whole new goal. Start studying and figuring out how to get as healthy as I possibly can. Get rid of my insurance company. Get rid of my doctor. I don't care how long you've been going to them. Ask them who's paying them. Are they working for themselves or are they working for a major corporation? And if they're working for a major corporation, write them off, frankly. They're not giving you the best information. It's sad that it is at that point, but it's not going to be fixed by a WHO pandemic treaty. It's only going to get worse. So, and I hate to sound really alarmist, but I'm being alarmist. This is kind of a pending deadline that may really end up biting us more in the butt than you might think. Now, look, you may be asking yourself, look, this is kind of interesting, kind of makes sense, but why should I listen to you? This is what I do for a living. I mean, I am a political hack. I've been working in politics for over 30 years. This is what, and I do campaigns and election work, and I work in governmental affairs, and I work in all that realm. And I've been doing it for over 30 years, which is cool because it teaches you how to read, reports, analyze districts and analysis, do a lot of statistical research. There's a lot of skills that you learn from that really apply well to this stuff. The only reason why I got interested in the health stuff is because I was going blind. 10 years ago, I was told that if I didn't get shots in the back of my eyes because of this macular degeneration, I would be blind. Well, I'm not getting shots in my eyes because I learned that there was something else I could do, and that was get healthy. And then I ran across Stephen Finney, who was giving a talk at Low Carb Down Under, and he talked about the low carb lifestyle. The only thing I knew about low carb was Atkins was an idiot. That was all I knew because that's what the media kept telling me. But here's this guy who's got his doctorate from MIT, got his medical degree from Stanford. Not an idiot. And he's talking about the low carb lifestyle and he's explaining the mechanisms of it. That's what got me interested. And that's what you got to do. You got to get curious. You got to start digging into this stuff. I'm not telling you that you need to believe every YouTube influencer out there. Most of them are pretty darn good that I follow, but I only follow about 3 or 4. When some guy tells you like the secret to health is to tap your forehead 4 times a day, that guy's an idiot. You can safely ignore him. But when somebody starts talking about vitamin D supplementation, why it makes a difference, or nitrous oxide and why it can reduce your blood pressure and stuff like that, start asking yourself, that's interesting. I'm not buying into everything you say just because you're on YouTube and you have a doctor after your name, but it's interesting. And I'm going to start following up and I'm going to start doing some more research and see who else agrees with you and see if there's mechanisms that makes sense. And when you start digging into it and you start taking control of your own health through the information that is freely available on the internet right now, you can utterly change your health. I know, I've done it. 10 years. I mean, it took me 10 years to get really darn healthy. But, frankly, it was a lot less than that. I mean, after I got into it, I was off to the races. I've only been getting healthier and stronger every single year. I've been able to quit my insurance. I've got a catastrophic policy. I really don't believe that you ought to leave yourself hanging out there because there's one type of medical work that our system shines at. That is acute injury. When my appendix went out, I was so glad that we had the medical system that we did. I got a really good surgeon, got it taken care of. It was wonderful. They take care of acute injuries like that. When you get in an auto wreck, there's no better place in the world to be than in the United States because for acute injuries, they're lifesavers. I have nothing against Western medicine for acute injuries, but unfortunately, they suck when it comes to chronic illness. Chronic illness is something that's long-term, pervasive, and 90% of the health problems that we've got in this country, according to some estimates, could be taken care of through diet and lifestyle. But guess what? There's no money in it. As a result, nobody mentions it. Your doctor doesn't have time to do it because the system is set up to make sure that they don't have time for it, and they don't train them in that. Doctors are not trained in diet, sleep, and exercise, the 3 biggest pillars of health. They don't know any more than I do. I probably know a lot more than most MDs do because I've read books on it. I've listened to lectures. I've listened to some of the best experts in the country. And what's really great when you free yourself from that system and you are no longer dependent on going to a doctor just because your insurance company wants you to go to that doctor, you're now going, I've got this particular health issue. My blood work shows this. Who do I want to talk to? And you can talk to a whole host of some of the best experts in the country. Online consultations. You can get 15 minutes for $50 online to talk to the best doctors in the entire planet about you, your lifestyle, your particular condition. Can you get 15 minutes with your doctor to talk about a particular health condition for $50? You pay $100 copay and you get 6 minutes and you're rushed out, and all he's talking about is what drugs you're on. The system ain't set up for your health. You've got to take control of it. And frankly, I think the clock is ticking seriously with the WHO pandemic treaty. It's a serious reality. But, if in May this darn thing passes, and all of a sudden you can't find the information, remember you got warned. I warned you about it. So take control of your health. The clock is ticking. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. I try to put out a couple of messages each week. I'm sorry this is kind of a scary one. It probably sounds a little over the top, but frankly, if you look up the pandemic treaty and what it can do, I'm not overselling this. I'm probably underselling it in some ways. But take control of your health. The time may be short. I hope it isn't. Could be, though. So grab it while you can. If you like this message, please hit the like and subscribe. Join this tribe. Frankly, again, in this fight for your health, you are all alone. It's you against the world. But we can all be alone in this together. We'll talk to you soon.